From Insipidly Vapid Productions and the Forecast Network, this is Going In Blind. I'm Morgan Jenkins, and welcome to episode 3 of Going In Blind, a tabletop role-playing game where each week a group of vision-impaired players sit down at a table, roll a few dice, and together tell a story. Come for the adventure, stay for the giant gelatinous cubes. Episode 1 was an introduction of sorts to the world of tabletop role-playing games, and episode 2 centered around character creation. Maddie and Kat sat down with their dungeon master, me, to create their characters. After selecting their race, class, name, alignment, and skill proficiencies, Maddie ended up creating a well-balanced dwarven cleric named Gallic, while Kat's Linker the Momentous, a halfling sorcerer, turned out terrifyingly persuasive, statistically speaking. Will her statistics become reality when the roll of a dice comes into play? Will these two get along like a house on fire? Will a house actually be set on fire? Find out as we begin in earnest on Going In Blind. Episode 3. The adventure begins. Along the Sword Coast, and nestled around the mouth of a river that bears its name, stands the city of Neverwinter, the jewel of the north. When the rest of Faerun was ravaged by the spell plague, empires and cities gone overnight, Neverwinter remained. Great chasms opened up and swallowed whole parts of the land, separating brother from brother, turning friend to enemy, and unleashing untold horrors into the skies and seas. Neverwinter remained. When, 75 years later, Mount Hotenow, the reason for the city's warm climate, erupted, spewing ash and dust into the air, quaking the earth and raining fire down on all around, Neverwinter remained, albeit a slightly smaller, more smouldery version of its former self. These days, Neverwinter is ruled over by Lord Neverember, who holds back undead attacks from the city's north with the help of Mintan mercenaries, fierce fighters, also prone to being brigands and pirates when the mood takes them. An unethical lot, but useful at the right price. In the centre of the safest part of Neverwinter stands the Protector's Enclave, in which sits the Neverwinter Markets. A loud, vibrant place full of all manner of man and beast, the central nexus of the city, an area through which all pass as they come and go from this once great metropolis, still standing proud, even as a shadow of its former self. There are tents and market stalls, dwarves, humans, tieflings, even drow, people of every race imaginable, selling everything from overripe fruit to spices to weapons to tabards with I Heart Neverwinter emblazoned upon them. Tacky as hell, but apparently they do well with the tourists. In the middle of all this madness, calmly walking down the street between hawkers shouting about their wares, are a dwarf and a halfling. With chainmail underneath a tunic and a holy symbol round her neck, Gallic the dwarf strides solemnly beside a tiny halfling sorcerer, dressed plainly but emanating power, Linker the Momentous. Neverwinter being a good source of work, both have been residing within its walls for some time now, and know it like the back of someone else's hand. Not their hand, who pays attention to the back of their own hand? More like the back of a hand that they've cut off of someone else and they wear as a trophy and use to cheat at cards. Like the back of that sort of hand. Not that either of them has done such a thing or would.
So, you're out and about in this throng of humanity. There are voices screaming, shouting, "Come and buy my oranges. Don't buy his oranges, they're atrocious. Buy my oranges. Those aren't even oranges, they're pears. What would you know, you charlatan?" And then knives are being thrown. And you're walking along, both of you just happen to be near each other. You may or may not know each other. I don't know if you do. Do you know each other? That is a very good question, especially if one of you thinks you do and the other one's like, no, don't know that word, no idea what you're talking about.
You're tall. You sure? Shut up. Should I go ride? I don't know you that well yet.
So, Linker the Momentous and Gallic, the dwarven cleric, and you come across these two little urchins. I almost said orchins, because that's a real thing. It's what happens when you take an orchid and kill its family. Then you get an orchin. No, these two little urchins. They're very, very sort of covered in dust and grime and mud, and they look like they've been that way for a while. You can tell at some point someone's thrown a bucket at them. It probably didn't have water in it, so they're really smelling ripe. You can smell them over the top of the oranges, and that's pretty strong, because at this point there's just orange juice going everywhere because of the knife throwing from earlier. And so you see them, they look very gaunt. They very clearly haven't been fed in a long time. And they turn and they say, Mister, because they're tiny and stupid and don't know whether you're a man or a woman. You go, Mister,
Do you have any food?
We're really hungry.
We are so very hungry. Would you buy us some food?
They ask as they eye the rapidly desiccating oranges.
I'll create a disturbance. You can knock one off.
I'm more than happy to help with that one. Come on, let's go make it.
Right, come on, you.
So you want to create a disturbance.
Yes,
What sort of disturbance would you create?
We're having
So
a bit of a scuffle.
Gallic turns and gives Linka a playful shove, sending her backwards and into the side of a passing human. Responding with a wry grin, Linka lunges forwards, grabbing the lapels of Gallic's tunic and nudging the back of the dwarf's knee, wrenching her sideways and sending them both toppling to the ground. While for those immediately around them, the scuffle is mildly entertaining, it does not serve as the distraction needed to secure food from any of the vendors.
This has created a bit of distraction, but not quite enough to distract the shopkeepers, who are actually enjoying the better business.
Do you want me to start a fire, kid?
Will this get us any food?
Probably not.
No, but it'll be fun anyway.
They go along with it. They're like, okay, we trust you.
Alright.
Adult people who are our own height.
Right. Come over here.
Yeah.
Not using any spell points. We're
No?
just gonna...
Yep.
So we're trying to get a small fire started.
Lovely.
On one of the food shops. Just
Yeah.
as in taking this
Yeah,
shop.
we're just gonna get the...
Yep.
Setting fire to a stall.
Yeah.
As much as you think people around you would love Neverwinter, apparently the apparel shop with the I Heart Neverwinter shirts doesn't necessarily agree with you, and it starts to smoulder. Because these things, they're made of mostly wood, and then with a cloth sheet over the top and a wooden bench at the front.
Yep.
And wood hangings. It's going to smoke, and it's really big, billowy, black smoke. You know it's going to just burst into flames and probably take a couple of things out with it really, really, really quickly. So it's the kind of distraction that, at the moment, with the black smoke, is already distracting people. The shopkeeper's already panicking, and it's already too late. The thing's going to go.
Come on, kid. Run with me this way. Away from the fire.
Yep.
Grab a couple of oranges if you want them on the way, and let's get out of here.
As Gallic and Linka run from the smouldering stall, kids in tow, they hear a loud whoosh behind them, and screams and shouts of horror fill the marketplace as fire engulfs the I Heart Neverwinter stall. As people flee from the fire, stall owners nearby are trying to save as much of their wares as possible. One fellow, a larger man, clearly some sort of fishmonger, is trying to jostle his entire shop away from the fire, being large enough that he's somewhat stuck in his stall, but he doesn't shuffle fast enough as an ember sparks across and the canopy above him catches fire. In shock, he launches himself back, taking the burning buildings with him, toppling backwards into the next stall over and spraying the still screaming market-goers with raw fish and fast-melting ice. Picking up some of the flung fish, street urchins follow Gallic and Linka away from the noise and the fire, stopping in the shadows of an alleyway, out of breath.
You hear the sound behind you of people running, and it's the kind of running that, unlike everyone else where it's just noise in the background, this running has a bit of weight to it. Sort of a clanking weight to it, as if they are wearing some kind of metal and chain mail. And you turn around and notice that there are a couple of guards coming your way down this alley, and they're coming right towards you. And they don't have any weapons drawn, but they are heading right at you. And you hear one of them go,
"Oh, you! Stop!"
Are we safe? Are we away from the fire? Everything went up. We were so terrified. We couldn't do anything.
And as you say that, the guards run towards you, and you think they're going to run right into you. And in fact, they do, and they sort of nudge past you and elbow you in the shoulder. And as you get nudged, you sort of turn around slightly, and you notice that the two kids that were with you have bolted down the end of the alleyway and gone up and over a wall. And the guards were clearly running after them. And the guard turns back to you.
"How could you let them get away?"
They're bigger than I am.
We didn't know that. We thought they were kids. Innocent little kids.
Innocent? Really, they're fugitives.
Well, how are we meant to know that?
How are you not supposed to know that? Their wanted posters are all over the city.
We are so sorry, sir. Honestly, with them being bigger than us, we were afraid of what they would do. They said that they just wanted to eat something. We just wanted to keep out of their way. If they're wanted, God only knows what they'll do to us.
They're wanted for arson. You're lucky you didn't go up in flames with the stalls that they clearly lit. Now, do you want to do a sort of try and persuade them that you're telling them the truth?
I think with my charisma, they already believe me.
Well, but charisma it's not an inherent thing. You roll to. Yeah.
Alright, I will definitely give it a roll and see if they're believing that we had absolutely nothing to do with it and are as innocent as we claim to be.
Okay.
As mentioned in episode 2, when players come across a problem or an obstacle, they attempt a solution using one of their skills. These skills tie back into their main attributes, which give them bonuses to let us know if they'll succeed. Of course, if it's a really cool thing or important for the story that they succeed, for instance, if a failure meant that the entire party dies, well, at that point we might fudge the dice rolls a little and let them succeed for the sake of enjoyment. There are some games of Dungeons & Dragons where the dice are the be-all and end-all, and what is rolled is final. And that's normally up to the players and the Dungeon Master to decide before the game begins. But if you've got a story-based group who are invested in their characters, that's really not the recommended way of playing. The Dungeon Master's Guide for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons even suggests a Dungeon Master roll their dice behind a screen so they can alter the results as need be, making it easier or harder based on what the situation requires. In this instance, we've got the first skill check, so we'll break it down for you to better understand how they function. We're not going to do this for every check in the game, this is just to give you an idea of how they unfold. Kat, playing Linker, wants to try and bluff her way out of a tricky situation, tricking the guards into believing the players had nothing to do with this fire or these urchins, and they were merely victims of circumstance. This is, of course, all lies. If this was a static task, like climbing a cliff or jumping over a river, listening for enemies or sensing a trap, we'd use a difficulty class or DC and then do a skill check against that. Now, because the skill check is against a non-player character, or NPC, it's called an opposed check because it's player versus character. So Kat has 18 in Charisma, which is good for a sorcerer, which gives her +4 to any skill roll involving Charisma, including Persuasion. As a sorcerer, she also got to choose several skills to be proficient in, which gives her an extra +2 to them, and Persuasion is one she chose.
Okay, 14.
Which means Kat has a score of 14 + 6, 20 for her Persuasion skill check in tricking the guard. Now for the guard, I'm using the Red Brand Ruffian stats from the Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure module that comes in the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition starter set, published by Wizards of the Coast. Now, just as Persuasion is tied to the Charisma score, detecting Linker's motive is tied to the guard's Wisdom, which is 9, or -1. So I roll a d20 and -1 from the score. If it's lower than Kat's 20, he believes her bluff. 12, -1.
The guards believe you.
Oh my. Sorry.
The fellow that's sort of pulled you over, he's looking a bit young, he's got sort of He's trying to grow a beard, but clearly can't grow a beard. Sort of about 17 years old, and you can see that he's starting to believe you, and he turns and goes,
Well, I'm sorry you were so scared.
You feel like he's about to let you go. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden you hear this bellow from behind him, and he shouts out, "Where are they?"
Back in the opening of the alleyway, silhouetted by smoke and flame, stands a brute of a man. Quickly marching towards the group, the yellowed light of the fire dancing over his features, the party recognizes Captain Braxos, leader of the Neverwinter Guard. Well known and feared for being not a nice man.
And the fellow that you were talking to, the young fellow, turns around and he's like,
"Sir, I'm so sorry, Captain Braxos, sir. The fugitives have escaped, sir."
"Who are these two?"
These are victims of the latest crime that the young arsonists have committed."
Is it victims or accomplices?
"Victims. I said victims, sir."
And he just backhands the young guy. And he looks at both of you and he says, "I don't believe it. We'll find out whether you're actually victims or not. Men, take them to the peninsula." Which kind of sounds like a call in, but it's not.
And at this point, I'm shaking, and I'm...
Yep.
"Whatever you like, sir. I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah.
I was fearing, sir, but I will go with you."
Two of his men step forward past the young fellow that he backhanded, and he was wearing gauntlets, so that's not like a soft backhand. That was a full fist of metal to the face. So that young fellow, he's not getting up anytime soon, and when he does, he's probably going to have to go see a physician about that jaw. And the two men sort of step over him and grab both of you. And because they're sort of human-sized, they just grab you both by the scruff of the neck and lift you up.
Put me down, put me down.
You're not all the way up, you're just
Yeah.
you're being lifted up onto onto your toes and then sort of marched forwards. Now, you mentioned Hotfoot. Are you going to do something along the way to...
Is the captain following us?
Oh, yes.
No. Not right now.
That gauntlet.
I will
By their time.
yes.
Yep. Not a
We might
problem.
break out later.
Mm.
Held unceremoniously by the scruff of the neck, Gallic and Linker are frog-marched back through the smouldering market stalls, past crews of guards with bucket chains formed, through a gate, up a hill, to the top of the peninsula. The peninsula, as its name suggests, juts out past the mouth of the Neverwinter River, surrounded on most sides with high cliffs and ocean spray. Originally the site of an old keep due to its strategic and defensible position, and sitting equidistant between the city core and the Black Lake district, post-Spellplague, the peninsula is home to Neverwinter's prison. A squat stone structure, oddly shaped and windowless, malevolently standing in relief against the retreating light of the setting sun. As Gallic and Linker approach, it seems deceptively small, even to them. The upper level, the level visible to passers-by, and the only level above ground, is the lesser prison, full mainly of holding cells for drunks or brigands or small-level criminals, people who pose no real risk to the city, but will probably be questioned or hung if they can't buy their way out. The entire prison is one big spiral, a main corridor sloping down and to the right, with small blocks of cells to the left, small rooms each containing 4 or 5 cells. To the right of the corridor are guards posts, entrances to the prison sewer, and locked shortcuts between the levels. Were you to continue down the corridor one full rotation, approximately 24 cell blocks along, you would come across a heavy-set iron gate, the entrance to the second level of the prison, the mid-level. It's where the bad prisoners go, for want of a better term, the murderers, thieves. It acts as a buffer level, mainly there to make it harder for anyone to get to or from the third and lowest level of the prison, the pit. One more rotation down, and behind 2 gates made of dwarven steel and secured with magics as old as the keep that once stood here, the pit is the darkest and deepest part of the peninsula. This is for securing the worst of the worst, your super evil, mass-murdering monsters, or people the world thinks are dead, that some city leader is keeping alive, but hidden.
Corporal, prisoners for questioning, related to the arson incident earlier.
Gadams, brats at it again, sir.
So it would seem.
They for the pit, sir.
No. I want them close for questioning. They pose no risk.
Yes, sir. Right, you two, bring these stubby imps through here.
At the head jailer's words, the guards, still holding the dwarf and the halfling by the scruff, leave Captain Braxus and follow the corporal back behind his desk, through a simple metal gate, and into the lesser section of the prison. Marvelling at their luck, and to having not been placed in the pit, Gallic and Linker's joy is short-lived as a mere 2 doors down the corridor they are stopped. Stepping into the second room, they notice it's small, lit poorly by a single torch on the right wall, its sconce head height for a human. Along the left of the room sit a row of 5 cells.
Would you like to do a perception check for me?
I would.
Which is just a d20 if you have.
Yep.
A character's perception of their surrounds can either be passive or active. Their passive perception, for both our players that's currently 13, is how alert they are naturally. So if creatures are sneaking up on them or there's a trap, their passive perception acts as a constant level of awareness. However, sometimes a more active role needs to be taken in one's noticing of things, and that's where a perception check comes in. You make a perception check to notice clues, detect secret doors, spot dangers, or other exciting situations. As such, when most players are introduced to a new room or situation, they will ask to roll a perception check before taking any other action. They'd roll a d20, 20-sided dice, then the dungeon master would measure that against a creature's stealth check or a DC that they've set. Usually, a perception check tells you if there's something you'd need to know about an area, a vital clue, a secret room, an important fact, or imminent danger you have yet to notice. Now, as this is the player's first new location, I'm coaching them a little bit by asking for a perception check. Normally, they'd ask for it themselves. And normally, if the DM's asking for a perception check from their players, panic.
I don't know much.
You notice that you are in a room that appears to be made of stone. You got an 11. So, Gallic, the cleric, as you get brought in, you notice that that in the second cell, there seem to be 2 people in there. One of them seems to be a dwarf, like yourself. The other one is human, incredibly gaunt and skinny, and in the corner, and you can sort of just hear him muttering. But because of the guards, you can't read, and the doors sort of opening and shutting, you can't hear what he's muttering. And you notice that there are 2 people in that cell. All the other cells seem to be empty, except for the 4th one, which has another person in it, and both of you get thrown into that cell with this other fellow. And he looks like the kind of person who is nursing a killer hangover. And so he's actually in sort of, they're not like noble clothes, but if you were once from a noble house, and you've fallen into disrepair. So they're once noble clothes, they're a bit shabby, they've got a bit of sick on them, and he looks like he's not feeling too crash hot. And so you are now in this cell, and the guards say to you,
Wait here until you are questioned.
And then the guy in the corner pipes up and he says, as if they had a choice. And then the door slams shut behind him, sort of.
And in the dungeon they shall wait until the dice read 5 or 8. Wait, sorry, hang on, that's Jumanji. Never mind that. But what will become of our intrepid, entrapped dwarven cleric and halfling sorcerer? Will they survive questioning? Will they escape? Will they put on a musical about seafarers, during which they stage an elaborate fake escape attempt, but actually they just dress in drag and leave with the audience at the end? Find out next time in Above the Pit, Episode 4 of Going In Blind. In Episode 3 of Going In Blind, the young girl and the young guard were played by Kat Leonard. Corporal Jessup and the shopkeeper were played by Bowden Shaw, and the young boy was played by Morgan Jenkins. Our theme music for Season 1 is Crusade by Kevin MacLeod. Our previously on music is Black Vortex, also by Kevin MacLeod. To find out more about his music, head to incompetech.com/music/royalty-free. In-episode music and sound effects from Syrinscape, a revolutionary sound design app specifically made for tabletop gaming. Check them out at Syrinscape.com. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, rate, comment, share us with your friends. Whatever you can do, it's a big help. Going In Blind is part of the Forecast Podcast Network. Go to theforecast.com.au, that's FOUR, to check out the other podcasts they have. You can get in touch with us through our email, goinginblindpodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter @goinginblinddnd, Facebook /goinginblinddnd, or visit our website, goinginblindpodcast.com, to check out past episodes, our custom character sheets, the modules we're running, notes on the games, and much more. Going In Blind game sessions are recorded at Vision Australia Kooyong. Going In Blind is edited and produced by me, Morgan Jenkins, and is an insipidly vapid production.